back to Anna Rose Reads the podcast. I am your host, Anna, and this week we are about to rock out once again. If you recall, last year, whenever Trueborn Press released their Punk Goes Horror anthology, I had the immense pleasure of not only having the anthology's editor, William Sterling, on, but two of the contributors, Liz Karen and Rachel Harrison, and we talked all about punk music, horror, the intersection of the two, and their stories that were featured in the anthology. Well, as you might have seen, there's another Punk Goes Horror. That's right, Punk Goes Horror 2, which I think that they should have titled Electric Boogaloo, but I digress. And so we had to make it happen again. William returns to chat about editing the second entry in this anthology series. May there be more, by the way. And I get two contributors to come on, Grace Reynolds and Keith Rosson, two stellar authors, stellar guests. It was such a delight to get to chat with them. So buckle up, put some earplugs in. It's about to get really, really loud in here. And I'll catch up with you guys after. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second official Punk Goes Horror episode of Anna Rose Reads. Electric Boogaloo is the way that I always like to refer to my sequels. So how is everybody doing? I'm going to go ahead and announce everybody that I have on this call, and we'll get everybody to say their voices so everybody knows on audio who's who. We have William Sterling. Go ahead and say something, William.
Say something, William.
There you go.
Hi.
We have Grace Reynolds. Grace, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Grace Reynolds, present and accounted for.
Right on. And then last but certainly not least, Mr. Keith Rosson is here in the flesh, or virtually, I should say. Keith.
Hi, everybody. Unwarranted opinion. I think that the cassette format is the best tape for, or the best format for punk. Boom.
Ooh.
There we go.
Okay, wait, that's a great conversation starter. I love that we started with this. Okay, because I literally, last year, this is going to sound kind of woo-woo and kind of crazy. I had a dream that I had to acquire a Walkman. I don't know why, but I had to do it.
This. Yeah,
I love prophetic dreams.
I posted about it on the internet because it possessed me. And then so I start looking for one. And then my mom texts me because my parents are like downsizing, they're cleaning out their house. My dad kept all of his cassettes. So like right now behind me, I have like Billy Joel, Billy Idol, Michael Jackson, Depeche Mode. I have all of his cassettes, and I made sure I got myself a cassette player, and I've listened to them, and it was a joyous occasion. So Keith, I do concur. It does sound great.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I mean, we can get into it and go into verbal fisticuffs and all that, but it's also an opinion, so who gives a shit?
Well, Grace and Will, what do you think is the best medium to consume pop music? Punk music. Sorry, why did I say pop? That's the opposite. That's the opposite. It's the opposite.
I'm conflicted. So or maybe not conflicted. I'm biased because I come from the era of CDs, and early 2000s is my era, and so I am partial to it because I still have my CD case. I held on to it like it's my own Bible, and that's where all my old CDs from high school used to live, the ones that didn't make it to the trash for whatever reason. And I had like a crappy little truck. I always drove to school every day, and I would take those CDs and I would just switch them out, hoping I wouldn't crash on the side of the road, and just blaring on full blast. So I'm going to go with the CD. And for folks who are also from my era, remember like the portable CD players I would always skip. Yeah, I'm a little partial to that.
I think that we had one of those too. And I remember we had a binder, and I was like, why would you put this in a binder? Like, this is the least safe vehicle to put this in while you're driving. Like, it makes no sense at all.
Very unsafe.
Very, very unsafe. The most distracted driving. All right, Sterling, what you got? What's your take on this?
I'm cheating. It's got to be live.
Okay.
If you are if you're not fearing for your life a little bit in the pit while you're listening to it, you're not really listening to it.
So you're a purist.
If it's not live, if we got to listen to the recording, then it's cassette all the way. You got to have that grain to it.
Nice.
I respect it. I like it. It's a great choice. All right. Well, we are here to actually talk about horror anthology and punk. So we should probably move on to that. But this is the second one that has been done. So last year I did an episode on the first one. Absolutely loved it. Loved the song choices that were in that one. We are back for round two here, and I want to ask logistically, this might just be for you, William, but how did this happen? How did this come to be? Like what
How dare
happened with
you?
yeah. How did you get away with it again? You know what I mean? Like what happened with the first one to bring us here?
Okay, so yeah, I'll kind of give this answer, and then my whole goal tonight is to stay the hell out of the rest of y'all's way, so you can get into the actual stories and stuff. But yeah, the logistics. So, Punk Goes Horror is a mixtape anthology. It's a bunch of, I think this time it was 19 horror stories written by horror authors, inspired by punk or punk adjacent songs of their choice. A year ago, we threw together the first anthology, and there was just this cool through line between what punk music tries to accomplish and what horror tries to accomplish. It's breaking the rules, it's going against the grain in society, it's righteous anger, it's celebrating the misfits. Like everything I just said applies to both of them equally, and like the fact that nobody slam banged these two together, like intentionally in an anthology, I was like, let's fix this. So we did it, and it was so much fun. And I got to go to StokerCon and like see a bunch of the people that were in the anthology with me, and that was just this cool point of connection. Like being able to walk up to Rachel Harrison and being like Alkaline Trio, and her being like Alkaline Trio, and just talking about Alkaline Trio for an hour. Music is one of my favorite things. Horror is my other favorite thing. So yeah, this is my universe. So the first anthology came together. I loved putting it together. I loved the end product. I loved everything that it kind of like ended up being community wise for me, for everybody else it looked like. So I wanted to do round two. As Punk One was coming together, we did an open call for Punk One, and there were a lot of stories that came in that were like, this is fucking fantastic, but we have a very limited budget. So I've got to figure out which of these we're leaving on the cutting room floor. And like, I still want to do something with these. I still want to do something with these authors. So there's 7 or 8 stories and authors sitting around kind of in that context.
Mhm.
And there's a whole nother stable of authors that's like, it would be so cool if we talked to Keith Rosson and got him into this because he is the punk horror guy. If
Oh,
there's
thanks.
any way we can drag him into this, like that would be awesome. And Christina and I are just having all these conversations, and it just started materializing. Um, it started materializing very informally at first. I think we got 7 or 8 people like interested and kind of locked in before we were sending contracts out or anything like that, even. So as it's kind of forming that way, Christina and I had this idea that, we're doing all this kind of secretively, like behind closed doors. What if we did like a surprise album drop of it? Like, let's put this whole thing together, get it printed, get it packaged, drop it on a random night, because that's one of the coolest, most punk things you can do, right? Out of the shadows, here comes a sucker punch. And we did that too. And just, I don't know, everything about this project, just, I love it.
Yeah, well,
And now I'll shut up.
no, 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 no. I love hearing about this because, I did get to see you at Stoker and we like did talk about this. It was very, very
Yeah.
cool. But as y'all were teasing the anniversary of Funko's Horror 1, I was like, they're not gonna drop a brand new one. Like this is just gonna be them announcing that they're doing. And then I was like, oh shit, no, no. Like I got an email from you. I was like, oh no, it's here. Like fully
Yeah.
formed. Shit. So that's very, very cool. I think it's really fun. And I think that there's like an atmosphere of fun that you feel around everybody that's involved with this. And, it's really nice to see that in horror, like being able to have like that playfulness as well as the gnarliness and the grittiness and all that good stuff. Um, and I have your introduction pulled up, and my favorite thing is like you literally open up this anthology with "Ah shit, we're doing this again." I mean, if you need to set the tone for anything more, I mean, it's right there for you. I really enjoy the spirit of this anthology and what you guys have created. And I want to pivot now to include both Grace and Keith in this. I want to talk about how you all kind of selected where you would go because here's the thing is I'm a music fan as well. I'm not super into punk. I have my, like older punk
Boo.
favorites. Yeah, I'm a real bore. But there's so much freaking music, right? There's so much.
Mhm.
And I don't know like if for y'all there is like always a song you're like, man, I would really love to write a story for this. And this is how it came for you, or if like this was a completely different way. So I want to hear from each of you of how you each landed on the song that you picked and like maybe tell us a little bit about the song and what it means to you. So Grace, if you want to go first and take the lead.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, so my story is called Veins, and it's inspired by the song of the same name by San Antonio punk rock band Fee, and they're amazing. They kick ass, and they've played at fantastic venues like Paper Tiger down there, which if you live in San Antonio, that's where you need to go for metal and punk bands to go see them live. It's a tiny little sweaty garage. It's great. But for me, I actually was like, I'm gonna give the backstory here, William. So for Punk Rock One, I had a story already written, and I was a little worried it was too splatterpunky. So I dialed it down and I adapted it to a different song by the Cocktail Twins, and it
Oh
was like
yeah.
more like goth dream pop. It's kind of what I did with it, and it was like a Frankenstein retelling. Um, but that didn't make the cut, which is fine. And then I talked to William about it later. But I said, "Hey, by the way, I have this actual story that this story is based off of." I was like, "I don't know if this is going to meet what you're looking for. It might be a little extreme, but here you go." And thankfully William liked it and he ran with it, which I'm glad because that was my preferred version of the story anyway. But my story is about a character named Magdalena who is in a ambiguous part of Eastern Europe, and she's a cam girl, and she makes money off of what she does, and the whole point of the story is retaking her autonomy. And the song Veins itself is about self-harm and depression, and I think a lot about how like early 2000s and what's the word I am looking for? The aesthetic of the early 2000s and
Yeah. No, I
like
know what you're
my
talking about.
you know what I'm talking about, like MySpace
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and
it bled into like the Tumblr era of like very dark, like
like everything
upsetting
looked like
content. Yeah.
yes, everything looked like a the music video Helena from like a Chemical
Yeah,
Romance. And
yeah.
so so part of me wanted to I love that story and I wanted to roll with that because I like exploring political themes
Hmm.
in my stories, and especially as someone with Eastern European descent, I like to explore the otherness of Eastern European characters and particularly like the sexualization of women in Eastern Europe and the objectification. And I wanted to find a way to put that on the page. And I love music too, and I love writing lyrically, and
Yeah.
I thought it was a good fit.
Well, now I want the Cocktail Twins story. Shit. But no, I really loved your story, and I did I did this last time. Whenever we did this, I made a point to make sure that I read the stories and then like I also listened to the music as well. And it always really kind of stuns me how, for me, and this could not be true for anybody else. I mean, punk music is so upbeat in a way that it's just high energy. So
Mhm.
it's harder for me to parse out the some of the darkness in it. But whenever you do sit with it, it is blatantly there. But there's like kind of a dissonance between like the frenetic energy of that music and the actual messaging and lyrics of it that like kind of takes me a minute sometimes to get a hold of. So it's really interesting, but no, I really enjoyed your story, and I felt like there was so much bubbling beneath the surface of what I was reading. Like I felt like there was so much going on, so I'm glad to hear that there was a lot more going on there.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's chaotic in the best of ways. I know it's a little bit of a messy story, if you
well,
will.
literally, yes, but I really I love what it's saying. But William, I want to ask too while we have the opportunity. So for like this Punk Goes Horror franchise, has there been any like interest or like temptation to like go into other genres? Perhaps, or like to keep running with the punk, like what is like? Because I know, like punk and horror are really the two that work together. But like, has there been any pull to go elsewhere. Not like we're gonna get a country goes
No.
horror, but you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
let's
No,
do
I
it.
gotcha.
Let's do it. Let's
We
go
can do
crazy with that.
alternative. We can do alternative, and I'll be down with that.
The first with the first one, somebody slid into my inbox and was like, "Hey, if I did a pop goes horror, like, would that rub you the wrong way?" And I was like, "No, do your thing, like, have fun." I haven't seen that pop up since, but I know it was a conversation.
Yeah.
And then maybe 2 or 3 days ago, Gabino Iglesias said something on his threads about like we should have more metal, black metal
Oh, I saw
inspired
that.
horror, and it was
Yeah.
like, there's also a route. And then if I'm gonna show some love to Sobolo Books, because why would I not?
Yeah.
They have a Taylor Swift inspired horror
Hmm.
anthology out now that's kind of playing similar songs to us.
Yeah.
Uh, very different songs, but similar songs. I don't know what I'm trying to say there.
It's like playing in the same sandbox but building different castles.
There we go.
Is what
Yes,
is what it
thank you.
feels like. There's a
Yeah.
there's a very sparkly and glittery on the surface. Ours are a little bit more gritty. But
So they're materializing. It's not me materializing them, but they're coming out, and I'm so proud.
yeah, well, I like the blend of writing fiction in this way and like marketing
Hmm.
it and packaging it in this neat little package with music. I mean, I think it's really
Yeah.
fun to combine horror and music this way.
Hmm.
And Keith, if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about your story, the song that you picked, how you picked it, and like what that song means to you,
Yeah,
how you picked it out of all of the songs you could.
I I was originally I was writing this story, and I had started writing it with a Jawbreaker song in mind. And William, I can't remember which one the original one was. Um,
I'm gonna go
but
find it while you're talking.
what's that? Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
go find the email while you're talking.
And eventually I started writing this, and I'm like, actually, like tonally, this fits just way better with the song Better Half, which is
Hmm.
originally was on a split 7-inch with Crimp Shrine, and that I got when I was like 15, and it was just like it's one of their best songs, I think. Um, and I feel like an outlier in the anthology because I'm a dipshit and I did not understand that we kind of wanted like the ideally like music would somehow fit in the anthology, it being a punk and horror anthology. Yeah,
Let me inject. You are not the only person that went a different direction with it, and just
right.
got
Yeah,
super inspired by the themes or the lyrics instead of like being musical
yeah.
with it.
So it's very like uh take it with a grain of salt. My interpretation is real loose with the lyrics of Better Half. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Um, but it was interesting because I had another idea picked, and then I was just like, I remember just writing an email being like, could we switch it to Better Half? So
Yeah.
Right on.
So it was Kiss the Bottle to start with,
that's what it was. Yeah,
and then we
and
pivoted.
I just tried to shoehorn the story into those lyrics, and it was just not working. So
Yeah.
the
I
other song made more sense.
Yeah, I remember from the first one, I think like Liz Cairns also was one that like she was like, well, it's not actually, but I'm like, no, but it is. I think that, you don't have to necessarily have that like direct correlation. I think that's a really cool thing about music is like if it's people who know the song and they have their own idea
Hmm.
of it, but you get to read a fully formed and edited story from someone about their interpretation of it. I think it's just the coolest fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it's very, very neat. But do you want to go ahead and introduce a little bit with your stories about Keith as well? I don't want to spoil either one of y'all's stories on accident. So,
Mine is about a kid he has a crush on his friend's older sister, and they're kind of navigating a family tragedy, and they're throwing a bunch of shit into this hole inside their house, inside this kid's house, and it kind of tends to like shift and sometimes get eaten and sometimes not, and it turns out every year, kind of like lottery-esque, the town has to feed somebody to this monster that appears in the football field of the school every year. And this kid's family's like, we're getting the fuck out of here, which is like unlikely. but he's like convinced that like they're going to be able to go to like New Hampshire or something like that and escape. And so not punk centric at all, but very focused on like notions of monsters and of like second chances and separate darker halves of yourself, which I think like comes up a lot in that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Way to, y'all, everybody is so much better at summarizing their stories than I could ever be. So
I
kudos to
want
y'all on that one.
There you
Can
go.
I dive in here a little bit though? Because
Go
for me,
crazy.
when you sent that to me, it was like, oh hell yeah, this is punk as shit. Because there's this community that's so just like committed to the idea of this thing that they're like willingly sacrificing themselves and
Hmm.
the people
Yeah.
around them to it. And you finally got one family that's like, no, fuck this. We're not doing that. We're going
Right,
against the
right.
grain.
No,
We're
that's
punkish for me. I don't know.
right.
It's amazing what people will do to feel a sense of security.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And
Hmm.
I think between that, that's a really good point that you bring up because I think with both of your stories, and I think, the whole entire thing with punk for me is the idea of conformity and feeling included and inclusivity and like in a way that is not necessarily like the good kind of inclusivity, right? Like the kind that you feel like you have to conform to be okay whenever it's a denial of self. So, like the whole entire celebration of punk is leaning into the things that you really are into because it's you and nobody else. And so, Grace, I want to talk a little bit about your story and dive into that. The whole entire story you mentioned is this diving into kind of a reclaiming of autonomy through like this violent means, right? Like it gets
Hmm.
pretty gnarly in there. And your main character's name is Magdalena, correct?
Yes.
Um, you brought it up already. There's a lot of like little biblical nods in this story. And I want to ask how deeply should we be reading this biblically? Because you talk about the taking of the rib. There's the name that is
Hmm.
very similar to Mary Magdalene. There's all these things, and I don't know if I'm just a Reformed Catholic kid who's like, oh my God,
Oh
all my
no.
trauma's surging back, or if I'm reading this correctly.
Lean into it as somebody who is no longer part of the church. You can lean
Yes.
in as you want. Magdalene, it just happens to be a name I borrowed from my family. I love outside of writing, I'm big into genealogy, and I'm like,
Oh,
let's
right
just
on.
borrow someone's name for this story. That's what I like to do. Um, but yeah, I saw a funny quote that feels like my writing style. It's like I'm in a complicated relationship with God and cannibalism, and that's the best way I can describe the vibe. Because I like to blame God a lot, and I think a lot of people do, and I think it's really fun to say F you in a story in written form. So yeah, absolutely, you can totally read into that because I think, especially when it comes to the way that women are treated in fiction historically and in real life, a lot of that can be blamed on these historical institutions like the church.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I really love what the setup of your story, right? So it's a cam girl. It's a girl who is,
Hmm.
performing for gratification and like the way that you set it up is the slow tick or the increase of engagement, right? That we see across the screen. And then everything just kind of keeps ramping up and ramping up and ramping up until it's like full on we're in it. And that there's a certain intensity that I felt that in reading it. And I'm very curious how that felt to write it. If that also kind of grew in intensity for you as you're trying to get these words on the page.
Yes. So sometimes when I'm writing a story, I like to think of a sheet of music. So if I don't know how many of us have music backgrounds here. I was a band kid, not a rock, not like a guitar or the drums. No, no, everyone. I was a clarinetist, so
I
you know
knew it. I was going to say, all right.
the most punk instrument of all, of course.
I love it.
But I like to think about different types of music, and it all has a structure, and I really like to think of sonatas a lot. And so if you like, you might see it a couple, if you read other short stories, you'll see there's kind of a structure I like to follow because I do think it's like writing music in a way, and I like to read things out loud, and I want it to sound like music. And that could also be my poetry background because I'm very laser focus on like singular words as I go because I want it to feel like that. And I really love trying to bring like a fever dream aspect to a story to make people get lost in that environment so that when the terrors come, it comes out of left field. You're like, the hell was that? So yes, absolutely. And It was a fun story to write, and it was scary to write for me, because something that I struggle, but I try to embrace a lot is the monstrous feminine, and
Mm.
I leaned it as hard as I could with this story, and hopefully that came through.
No, I definitely think it did. And I kind of empathize with that because I think it's always kind of a hard line to walk, like whenever you know what you're trying to convey, and much like with this story, what others are getting from it is always like there's a little bit of give and take with that, I feel like. But you leave the story with one hell of a line, talking about unwanted depths of creation being repaid, and that just like really really blew me away.
Yeah.
Like what a mic drop moment, right?
Hmm.
And I'm a little curious, I'm a little like, how did writing that feel? Because that feels empowering to me reading it.
Oh,
So
it's so empowering, because I think, well, one, we'll go back to the Bible, everybody. Eve didn't ask to be made, everybody.
yeah.
She didn't ask to be biblical Prometheus over here. So I think that that was part of it, because we see throughout history, even now, especially with this younger generation, there's some scary statistics about what they believe a woman's role should be in and outside of the workforce, in the home specifically. And I want to be, and I think about how they use biblical text and religious text to, I guess, acquire, or the ends justify the means, so to speak,
Yeah.
justify their actions and their behavior towards other people. And I want to think about, well, your God created woman, and you blame woman for everything, even though your patriarch asked for woman. And so I think a lot about that. And the whole time I was thinking, how can I make a good for her story out of this?
No, I totally I get that, but I really like what you were doing and saying with that story. It's so much, like in very limited space, and I think I can say that for both you and Keith. You do a lot of world building essentially in a very short amount of time. Keith, I take little notes whenever I read. So I wrote holes question mark, cults question mark, coming of age themes question mark, and it just kind of kept escalating as I went from there. Because as we learn more about this community that your characters are set in this place, much like with Grace's, the rules, always in horror can kind of change and shift, and we don't really know what world we're walking into, especially in an anthology. I think it's really fun to figure out what rules everybody's playing by. Um, and I had a really fun time with that in yours, Keith. So how did you land on this hole in the middle of the house and all that it represents
You
to these
know, I
characters?
mean, for one, I think that there's like in some stories you just got to have like some degree of like I'm along for the ride, man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm.
This idea of like a community is so isolated but so otherwise like normal-ish that like this can happen once a year and there's no repercussion from the outside world. Like, you just got to go along for the ride,
Yeah.
story-wise. But there are like maybe I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen like weird galvanizing moments throughout your childhood that you just kind of drag along with you. And one for me was I had a friend who had a giant hole in his living room. And they were like, pretty like destitute living wise and like really struggling and everything. And it was just a goddamn hole in their living room with like the frayed carpet like trailing down into it. And he would just throw a bunch of shit into it, you know? And then we would go play GI Joes, and it was just such a like a thing that I've just carried with me forever.
Yeah.
Um, and so you just use like a little kernel and start building off of that and building scaffolding from it. And so that was the nexus for it. The little building block for it was just that, like two kids hanging out, burning shit and throwing it into this hole. You know?
Yeah. Well, they're doing
Hmm.
shit that kids do. I mean,
Yeah, totally.
they're like reading diaries that they shouldn't be reading and like notebooks that they
Yep.
found, and they're like they're being kids. But then,
Mhm.
you drop in this hole, and then you very casually drop in that the father is in a back room like moaning. And you're
Right.
like, what is that about? Like, so there's this very like unsettling atmosphere that you institute very like just this is what it is, which I really really enjoyed because it's like obviously not as all as what we seem here is all as it seems here, and then by the end of the story when we kind of do see what's up, we're like, oh, that's what's going on,
Right.
but there is like this thematically this kind of like coming of age thing of like departure of like this is not what I signed up for and this is not what I want to do anymore. And this is what we see with your character who is like my family's going to get out, we're going to leave
Right.
against all of the conformity against there. And so I was a little curious how that felt to write about like if it kind of felt like revisiting your inner kid a little bit about, like
Yeah, I
thinking
mean,
about adulthood and growing up or
I think writing about kids that age is so hard.
yeah.
And even like culturally and socially, my childhood is at that age is so vastly different than kids this age. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, and so it's like there's a real risk of like I am not getting this even close to right. You know, and you just kind of have to work off of those building blocks that you remember as a kid. And I think it's really hard to write about that stuff accurately. You know, just like it is with punk. I think punk is really hard to write about and getting all those nuances down, you know? And so it really is just like, it was almost easier to make it like, oh, well, these kids aren't like normal teenagers or tweens or whatever, because they're in this weird half lit place, you know, with no internet or whatever. So it was easier that way, you know?
Yeah.
It's really just like finding the little tricks that work for you. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? With short stories, because there's not a lot of room.
Yeah.
And with novels, you can just dump every damn thing in there that you want. But you got to be smarter with short stories, you know, or more judicious with them.
Mm.
Yeah, the efficiency. Like you have to I find like
Yeah,
the deftness of which you dole out your information has to be
right.
so meticulous. And when I read the title of your story, Better Half, I was thinking, and like we realized that the father in who's moaning in the background is very sad because he's lost
Wearing
his
like an
wife.
I'm a Pepper 2 t shirt or whatever he's got on.
Yeah, yeah. He's he's very sad and because he no longer has his wife. And so I was thinking, oh, this is the better half that we're seeing. But then when we make it out to the football field with the even bigger hole in the ground, we see that this sacrifice and there's a woman who's ready and she's like, yeah, I lost my husband however long ago, I'm ready. And she trips and she falls and there's kind of a revelation in her reaction to whenever she falls before the next thing happens. And that felt like a really powerful moment of thinking maybe you know what you want and then you don't know what you want. Or maybe the first time that you actually challenge the truth that's been given to you. And I feel like that is a huge thing thematically that's in all of punk. And that is very, very punk to question the status quo. So that moment felt really big. Did it feel big to you in writing it?
I mean, I love stuff like this because you make me sound so smart, and I really appreciate that. Because to me, that moment where this woman is like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to the hole and the thing that lives inside it, um, and then she stumbles, and then she's like, that moment of oh shit. Like I think of how many people decide to do something really dumb or dangerous or whatever, and if you had that instant to be like, just kidding, I take it back, what would you do? You know what I mean? And so that for her, it's just that real moment of like, I changed my goddamn mind, but it's
Hmm.
too late, you
Yeah.
know? And I think there's a lot of like room to play around emotionally in a moment like that. So
Well, it's really horrific. It's really horrific because that's
yeah,
past the point of no return. Much like
yeah,
Grace, your
good
character has
stuff.
a point of no return in which she,
Hmm.
I think that she's okay with what she's done. But it's
Yeah.
still really harrowing to think about the point of no return. And I think that you equally hit both of this point in your stories. And it's so scary, I think, to think about what's on the other side of the point of no return.
Hmm.
Psychologically, like it doesn't have to be all blood and guts. It can just be thinking about what that character is having to sit with for the rest of their existence, which is really, really harrowing. So, congratulations to both of you on making me kind of existentially crash out there.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to throw a question out for all of you. So, William, despite your best efforts of dodging being more part of this interview, you will be involved.
There you go.
Um, if this is going to be kind of throwing some of you on the spot, but if you had to possibly pick maybe like two or three other songs that you would really want to write about. And it doesn't even have to be punk. It can be whatever. I'm very curious what you all would be itching to explore in horror fiction through music. Anybody
Hmm.
can go first,
Oh,
anybody can jump
jeez.
around.
Shit, that's a hard one.
It is
That's
because
hard.
this is like the question. It's like, what's your favorite book that you've read this year? And you're like, I've never read a book ever. Um,
That's exactly like,
Ooh.
do you have a book you can recommend? And I choke every single time.
yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I think personally, there is a song, I don't know how well I would translate it to a horror story, but there's a Sinead O'Connor song that I think is one of the most punk
Ooh.
songs that I've ever heard. And it's not punk at all, you know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
But Black Boys on Mopeds, probably one of my
Mhm.
top five favorite punk songs ever.
Right on.
It's just so incendiary and fierce and mournful, which I think the best punk music is, you know?
Yeah. That's very like on brand for punk. What
Yeah.
about you, Grace and Will? Where are we
I,
at?
okay, so I'm gonna call him punk adjacent here because I've listened to mostly punk adjacent growing up. Because you're gonna laugh here when I have like a list of notes of all the bands I listened to when I was in high school. Just I was like, ooh, who can I pick? All right. So I'm gonna start off with Paramore, and
Yes.
I would pick the song Conspiracy
I love it.
because I freaking love that song. And I think that if you're going through any hard time, my gosh, that song will just eat you up and spit you out. And then the second one I would pick is Justified by the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, which is
I like it.
I like the William, were you a Red Jumpsuit Apparatus fan? Did you
Throwback.
also see them at Warped Tour?
Yes.
That's where I saw them too.
There's still gravel in my knee from either that show or the Chiodos show. I'm not
Oh,
certain which one got the gravel in there, but it's there.
do you remember when Chiodos would have everybody like make a wall against each other to run into each other in
The
the
Wall of
crowd?
Death. Yeah.
The Wall of Death. That was one of like a favorite memory of mine.
Back before we learned everything about Craig Owens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm dying. Y'all are laughing and like having the best time talking about the wall of death. really, really
You
love
had
this.
it was fun though because you were hot and sweaty and it was outside and gosh, you were hoping that you weren't going to get hurt, but but it was just the electric energy of everybody in a small space together and like they would make you split and then they would make you run against each other and you were going to come out hurt in one way or another and you just had to deal with
Yep.
it.
So it's just a matter of how bad you're coming
How
out.
badly are you going to get hurt?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very fair. All right, William, you're up. You're not getting out of
All
it.
right. Yeah, I'll do two. First one, I'm not gonna pick a song of theirs, but there's a band going right now, getting bigger and bigger, called the Callous Dowboys.
Oh.
Um, they're absolute chaos musically. But their lead singer's been on record a couple of times where every 30 seconds in their song, he wants to have a time signature shift. So
Interesting.
as they're playing the song, they will just completely flip genres constantly through the first like three-quarters of the song. And then the last quarter of the song is them grabbing everything that they've done up to that point and slamming it together and somehow making these screamo moments mesh with the harmonies, mesh with the like weird techno stuff they did for 30 seconds, and just like everything comes together. So I think trying to do something with that literarily, that's not a word, whatever,
It can be.
with words could be kind of fun. Just hitting a short story with that sort of an approach. It would probably be a hot mess, but I think it would be fun to try to do.
Nice.
I don't know what the literary equivalent of that would be, like changing time signatures, like change font spacing. I don't know.
You change genres. You just like start with a romance. All of a sudden it's horror. Nope, this is lit fic. And we're back to something else.
But then number two, I'm My Chemical Romance Black Parade stan until the day I
Oh.
die. So just
Mm.
pick any song off that album and throw it my way, and just give me a day in a room, and I'll have something for you.
Very, very fair. I like it all. Excellent choices. I'll never forget. I got grounded when I was in middle school and like I got my iPod Touch taken away or whatever. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna teach myself piano now because we had a keyboard and I was like, I'm not supposed to be on the internet, but my mom let me like look up So, and I remember I started to learn Welcome to the Black Parade on piano, and I was like, this is my moment. As a sixth grader, really felt like hot shit, but I digress. Well, this is another question that I like to. I think I threw this out last year actually. What are some of y'all's favorite live performances with music? Because, and I asked this question,
Ooh.
I have never gotten more emotional than at concerts sometimes, like so
Hmm.
moved by like, and then also with reading and hanging out with people who write and read and who are of the same creative mindset. And there's something really, really cool about that whole like community experience. Last year at Jazz Fest, we heard Pearl Jam, and like getting to hear like
That's cool.
Black live was like I get chills thinking about it. It was like really, really cool. So that's like up there, and I also got to see Paramore, so like that's up there too for me. But I'm
Ah.
curious if any of y'all have had this like really big moment hearing music live, and if that's like
Hmm.
impacted your artistry and your creativity, and if so, what was that moment?
I
Another
can
big
lead. I got
okay.
mine top of the head.
I have to think.
Um, Band called Manchester Orchestra.
Yeah.
They're from
Mm.
Atlanta. Love them to death. Like they are my backbone. But they've got an album called Black Mile to the Surface, which is this concept album telling a story, and it's kind of hazy what the story is as it goes through. Somebody's dead, trying to connect with their daughter, it seems like, and like everybody's trying to find their peace, and it all builds up into this song at the very end of the album called The Silence. And there's just
Mm.
a moment at the end of that song where like the dead dad and the daughter reconnect, and like you can hear it and feel it musically, and it is him just slamming on the keyboard and all the guitars are together and just like everything coalesces.
Very, very cool.
So Shaky Knees a couple of years ago, they were playing, and Shaky Knees is in Atlanta. They're from Atlanta, so like they're gonna freaking bring it at this show to start with. But as they're starting their set, there's these like storm clouds in the distance. It's like, please, please, please don't ruin this moment for everybody. They manage to get through their sets, get to the closing song, go into the silence with like the piano intro and everything, and it's building and it's building. And as soon as they hit that like moment at the end of the song, just the sky opened up and everybody's like singing along and it all hits at exactly the same time. It was like this is like nothing's ever beating this.
Mhm.
Right on, yeah.
And it was just yeah. Also, secondary answer: My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade, playing it live, whole stage on fire at the end of the show, screaming famous last words along with everybody else in the crowd. Like, let's go.
Yeah, no, that's huge, man. That's like some cosmic shit whenever the weather
Yeah,
plays nice for those things, like and
yeah.
lines up that way. So that's awesome. Keith and Grace, do y'all have picks?
Mm.
I think one of the most powerful shows for me was I was probably 20 and I saw Lungfish play at the Black Cat in DC. And if you've ever heard Lungfish, they're very like they just have one riff and they just play it the entire song, for like 3 minutes. And the singer is this guy named Daniel Higgs. He's like a tattoo artist who frequently gets mistaken for like a homeless person at their shows where, security's like, sir, you can't be in here. I'm sorry. And he's like, I'm the singer. And so like, they're these like professional looking dudes. And then this guy just looking like a fisherman with, tattoos everywhere and shit. And again, it's not like fast or hard music. And so it was very almost hypnotic. And he as a frontman was just so powerful. And it
Hmm.
would just be these like lurching, you'd almost get it into this like lurching kind of hypnosis, and then they would just explode and it would be terrifying,
Yeah.
in the tiny club. And it was, I still remember it, 30 years later. It was so good.
Yeah, those
Mm.
smaller settings are like they're crazy to be in those moments, like when especially when it's not like, like a huge venue. That's wild to
Yeah. And they're not a
imagine.
band that, I personally would have ever thought like stunning live, but they really were, so
Yeah. That's always really awesome whenever like that wow factor comes through in
yeah,
person.
they were
Mhm.
scary. Yeah. So.
Right on. Hell yeah. All right, Grace, you have one?
I think I was thinking of a couple. I would probably say when I was younger and seeing Seosin in person was left a mark on me. I Seosin is one of my favorite bands. I feel like they just got me through so much, especially in high school, like all the teen angst and everything else going on. And I feel like everybody who loves punk, we all kind of grew up in like a similar setting for some reason, just like crumbling industry and things of that nature. And not realizing your environment until you're out of it, so to speak. And so seeing them live will always stay with me for sure. And more recent memory, I went back in San Antonio, Paper Tiger. So my husband and I, for backstory, we don't have a lot of the same shared music interests. So us changing the radio station, there's a fight somewhere in that. But we will meet in the middle on metal, which is really nice. And so we went to go see a Swedish symphonic metal band that my husband really likes called Elaine at Paper Tiger. And it was so hot. It was like 100 degrees and there was no air conditioning.
Oh my God, yeah.
But it was so much fun. And I was just thinking about anytime I've really been to a concert and I felt moved, it was because of the people who I was with, and that I was thinking, wow, I'm at this stage in my life, and these are the people who I'm there with in this chapter of life, and this is who is getting me through. And I do feel like there is an essence of punk there in that because you can look to your left, look to your right, that everybody's like fighting against, raging against the same machine, so to speak. And then I do feel like I'll come back to this conversation later because I get to see some of my favorite people this summer. I'm going to see Spirit Box and Evanescence on tour. I'm so freaking excited
Oh,
because I've been
hell
listening to
yeah.
Evanescence since I was 12 years old. So
Oh
I've
my
never gotten to
God.
see them live. And my first CD was the Evanescence self-titled album. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And I think I'm probably going to cry at that show.
That's so valid. I'm pretty sure that they had a song that was on like the 2004 Grammy nomination CD, which my mom played the bejesus out of, and like that was how I found them. Um, but oh my God, no, that's so awesome. I'm so jealous that you could too. That's
My
phenomenal.
mom played Soundgarden all the time. That was my mom's
Yeah.
CDs. It's just Soundgarden in the background.
Yeah, my dad was like very much into like Audio Slave and stuff. And then my mom was
Mhm.
playing like show tunes from Chicago and Grammy nomination CDs and Matchbox 20. So my music taste is real
Their
eclectic.
Matchbox 20 is great live. They're fantastic
I saw them
live.
like 3 years ago with my mom. It was great.
I love that. I love how like our parents' uh, music taste can influence. I would say mine did. My dad, his favorite band is AC/DC, so I am
Yeah.
a little partial to AC/DC as well.
Yeah, it's really funny that you said I have a tattoo and it's like it's a skeleton hand that's handing or a living hand that's living handing off like a record to a skeletal hand. And
Hmm.
it's like I got my music taste from my parents obviously and then like them from their parents, my grandparents stuff. So like I wanted to like figure out how we could convey that and this was the closest thing I could come up with.
Yeah, that's
So
great. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. You know, whenever I'm thinking about Matchbox 20, I just rub my little tattoo. It's really nice. Thanks, Rob
Oh, I
Thomas.
love that.
Oh man. Well, this has been a lovely chat, you guys. I really, really have enjoyed getting to hear about what y'all are into music-wise and with your fiction and diving deeper into your stories. I also want to give y'all the opportunity to plug whatever else y'all are doing this year, whatever events, books, projects, whatever's going on. So, Grace, if you want to start, what do you have going on the rest of
Okay.
2026 that we can promote?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So in the immediate future, my honky tonk slasher Neon Moon is coming out on May 5th from Dark Matter Inc. I'm very excited about that. If you
Very
like
soon,
music,
very exciting.
if you like country music, if you hate country music, it's a fun time. I guarantee you'll enjoy it.
I
And if
love
you
it.
don't, I'm sorry. And let's see, after that, I have a couple projects I can't talk about quite yet that might make an appearance later this year. I will be at StokerCon, so I'm very excited about that. I have not planned on going to any other events. I'm thinking about it. I've heard some cool conferences happening more in New England that I'm considering right now. But other than that, I finished the final draft, I should say, of my next poetry collection, Gods Always Eat Their Children, which is very like anarchist and anti-capitalist in nature. So keep a lookout for that. Maybe there'll be an announcement about that in the near future. We will see. So that's my spiel.
Very, very exciting. All very awesome things. Is everybody here going to Stoker, by the way? Is everybody? Yep. Okay. Right.
William,
No!
no,
No!
I have to take a gap year. I'm back next year. I'm back in
Okay.
2027, but this year, yeah, it's not in the cards.
Okay, so I'm gonna get a cardboard cutout of you and I'll just carry it around with me as I go.
Please do.
Perfect. Got it. It'll be like Where's Waldo, but
I need
where's
everybody
William?
to sign it too with like little FUs.
I can make that happen. I can see what I can do. Keith, what else do you have going on this year that we can plug?
I have so a vampire novel last year came out called Coffin Moon, and the paperback will be coming out in September, the same day, weirdly enough, that my new novel Crone comes out.
Right on.
That's a witch crime dope missing kid novel. So lots of sadness and grossness, which is kind of what I'm running with these days. So
Hey, it's been working, so I'm all for it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay, William, do you have anything else that we can plug for you? Are you working on anything? Are you working secretly on a Punk 3 that we don't know about, but will randomly drop 3 weeks from now?
No, Punk is on hiatus for a minute, so I can get my life back in order. Um, no, it's weird. I've been thinking and trying to brainstorm while y'all have been going. I don't have anything on the horizon right now, which is
what your Mad Axe book?
I was
That
about to
one.
say
yeah,
That
okay, that
the
one.
just came
Beanie
out.
Baby.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I have an evil Beanie Baby book that came out from Mad Axe Media like 2 months ago, so I'm still on the promotional wagon for that one. But
nice.
future facing, nothing. But yeah, the Totally Freaked series is Mad Axe Media, which is great. Like
Mhm.
unabashedly love them as a small publisher, which, so small publishers kind of like, I don't know, sometimes they're kind of dicey. Mad Axe is amazing. Joey's amazing. Everybody love him and support him. But they did like a 90s horror inspired Totally
Mhm.
Freaked series that he was kind enough to let me write for. And yeah, evil Beanie Babies,
Oh
giving
yeah.
some cruel parents their just desserts.
I love that so much. And it does wonders for my childhood nostalgia. So just thinking about it too much really really gets to me. So thank you for that. But genuinely, sincerely, not sarcastically, thank you all so much for making the time to chat about this anthology. This has been such a treat. This is available now. I mean, like we said, this anthology, Punko's Horror 2, is available because it was a sneak release. So everybody should go pick up a copy now from Trueborn Press. And thank you all so, so very much. And hope to speak to you all soon.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
This was fun.
I'm glad
Yeah.
that we had fun. Good. A very big resounding thank you to William, Grace, and Keith for coming on the podcast to talk about their contributions to the Punk Goes Horror 2 anthology. It is always so, so fun to talk with any kind of artist about their taste in music and the core memories that they have with their favorite music and just all of those things. It's a little hard sometimes to talk about an anthology, especially, like a short story is very short, obviously, and we're trying not to spoil those things for you all with these interviews. So I very much am grateful to my guests for indulging me on all of my fun little music questions at the end there. I felt like that was a good way to still be on theme, but not spoil any of the fun that you will find in Punk Goes Horror 2. Now, I highly recommend picking up Punk Goes Horror 1. Same with the sequel. It is a delightfully great, terrible time, as I like to say about horror stories. So definitely check out the links in the show notes to pick up a copy if you're interested in doing so. Yeah, I don't know if I'll have a bonus episode for you all this week. I just might. I'm working on some things. As given my recent time off, I've acquired a little bit of free time, not too much because I'm doing other things as well. But yeah, you all might be getting a bonus episode on Thursday. Stay tuned for that. TBD. Sorry to be wishy-washy, but such is the life of a 27-year-old one-woman podcaster. At any rate, thank you all so very much for tuning in last week, promoting the show, listening. It is by far the most popular week that I've had on this podcast. Nat's episode did incredible numbers, and then Alan's right after also did. And it just both culminated in a huge week of downloads for the podcast and a rise in perhaps popularity, some may say. So thank you all very, very much. Especially shout out to my Patreon folks. Y'all have been super fun in the Discord. I've been, really enjoying chatting with you all, hearing about what you all want to hear on the podcast, what else we can do with the podcast. So thank you all so very much for that. I might be checking back in with all of you on Thursday. May not be until next week, but stay tuned to find out. Love you guys lots. Stay safe. Hope you all are doing well. And until next time.